Hello everybody and welcome to my first City Skylines real world maps tutorial. I will be redoing my original map, which was Jimboomba, my town that I'm living in. Now this is not about making a one-to-one map other than kind of making an 18 kilometer by 18 kilometer area. It's about the terrain and being able to properly show the water, way the water flows and such like that. That way you get a map that when you got a flooding, the water actually acts the way it should. So, alright, well as you can hear I got the city skylines playing in the background. Hopefully it's not too loud. I'm gonna cut the volume on that down a bit. There we go. Okay, so now most of you would probably use Terrain Party to grab a quick map, upload it. Now, Terrain Party is good. I just have a few problems with one. Doesn't really have the more finer resolution maps for the rest of the world other than the United States. As well as that its square that it uses doesn't take into account the fact that the world is actually round. So the further away you get away from the equator, the more distorted this 18-meter area will actually be. So the methods I'm showing you here is going to be able to actually fix that sort of issues. So, now, Terrain Party, as I said, is not necessarily something that you only want to use for every situation, but it is a good place to start. Okay, so here is Terrain Party, and I've already got it centered around the area that I want. As you can see here, we've got Jimboomba right here. Now, what I want is I want the actual coordinates of the starting point, which means I want this little point right up here. Now, this is where you can go to Google Maps and actually find out get a good idea of what that point is. And so we can't zoom in any further than this, so this is all fine and dandy. But we can get a general idea of where that's at. In this case here, the area is approximately right here. So what I'm just going to do with this one is I'm going to actually get a what is here button, so I can get this coordinates for that. Cool, right there. Now, from here, you can actually you can find it online anywhere. It's coordinate distance calculators. You can see here, I got this open right here. This one's from bolter.com/GPS/distance. What we're looking for is a set of coordinates that is exactly 18 kilometers by 18 kilometers. So we can paste in our coordinates like this. So in the case of the north-south first and the east-west second, make sure you use your negative if you're south and your negatives if you happen to be on the east. Also, you don't need to be this accurate, so we're only going to go to 4 significant digits on the decimal points. There we go. Now, to start with, all you have to do is to find the coordinates. We just need to find out straight line distances. So we're just going to keep the north-south coordinates the same for the second. And we're just going to increase the east-west one by, say, we'll put that to 9.5. And we want kilometers because we want 18 kilometers. So the distance between that is like 20 kilometers, way more than we need. So so all we have to do is come back here and adjust our numbers a bit. Might help if I click. You gotta be careful, make sure you don't miss any of your numbers there. So try this again. All right. 153. 152.95. 1.2.599. 153. So apparently in this program here, we just got to be careful of the, we have to put the decimals at the end or else it misreads it as something else. So 153.1. Okay, we're almost there. 153.15. 2. So the reason why I picked the 4 significant digits is because when you're doing it at the 4 significant digits, each 0.0001 ends up being approximately 0.01 kilometers, give or take a bit. So we can sit there and say, okay, well, we need to go another 33. So let's do that. Add the 33, see where we get. See, almost there. So 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so that's exactly 18 kilometers. So we've actually got ourselves 3 of our points. So I'm just going to pull this up here. We'll use the file I got there for my own personal thing for later. So we know that our x coordinates are going from 152.9408 to 153.1234. I don't know, we just need to deal with our y's now. So we know that our y maximum is a 27.7492. So what we need to do here is we go back and we do the same thing. We're going to just put that out. Oops, paste that to both sides. Now we're actually changing just the portion, the north and south portion. So 27.9. Okay, so as I said before, because every 0.0001 is approximately every 0.01 kilometers, I can tell you that we just need another 129. So I'm just going to do that. I'm going to do 129. Calculate. All right, so we've now got our coordinate systems that we know is 18 kilometers on each side. So again, we're going to mark this down here so we can have for future reference. The minimum on that is at negative 27.9116 and negative 27.7492. So now that we've got what we know as our exact coordinates, we can actually start dealing with getting the map itself. So I'm just going to close this out. So where I use to get my geotiff data is what I use to actually create my world maps is a place called earthexplorer.usgc.gov. You see right here, it actually allows you to pick any point in the world and search a lot of different data sets. So you could use this formula to just making your, more than just your digital elevation. You got your aerial imagery of areas, your vegetation monitoring, that sort of thing. So actually using this site for research, for if you're doing like schoolwork or something professional, is a good idea. But in this case here, we're just worried about data sets. So we're just going to add a couple coordinates here. This one, add coordinates. So that's our first coordinate. So that's our little box that we end up having. And as you can see, it's quite well matches what Terrain Party was trying to give us, except that this one is exactly 18 kilometers by 18 kilometers. So we'll close out Terrain Party. And we actually don't need Google Maps anymore, so we're good here. All right, now from here, we go over to data sets. Now what I'm after is under digital elevation, SRTM. Now this is the one that was done by the shuttles a couple years ago. And we want this one here, the SRTM 1 arc-second global. This is actually a 1 arc-second map across all the globe. And as I said, this is where this becomes better than Terrain Party, because Terrain Party only has the 1 arc-second for pretty much the United States area. Beyond that, it's a little bit more coarser. So once we found that, We're just going to go to results. It's going to do a search. And in this case here, it finds us 2 maps. The reason for that is because the area we selected just happens to coincide over 2 different map sets. So we'll need both of them. You would in this particular program, you would have to log in, but you'd be able to download these 2 files to your computer. I've already done that, so we don't have to wait for that to download. Okay, so this is how you get your GeoTIFF files for any place. And to point out, another reason why I prefer to use methods like this than using just Terrain Party is if I'm doing coastal areas, I actually like to use bathymetric data to actually give a good modeling toward the bottom of the ocean levels and such like that. Give it something a little bit more to look at and something that might affect like tsunamis and stuff like that a little bit more than just having just the flat ground underneath where everything can just push through. Okay, so as I said, I've already downloaded this, so we're going to cut out this. The program that we're actually going to use to manipulate this data is a program called QGIS. QGIS. Again, this is a free program. Anyone could use it. In this case here, I've already started the project. We've already downloaded the file, so all you have to do is you go to your layer and add layer, and we're going to add what's called a raster layer. You browse, and then you just click the little 3 dots here to browse. Now, as I said, I pretty much already got ones in here. There we go, data sets. So I actually want both of these files. Alright, so there you go. We got both of these files that are in here that we grabbed. The area that we're dealing with is actually still going to be a small area somewhere in here. We still have to do some manipulation of these files. What we need to do is merge these files so that it's considered to be a single source. And to do that, again, we go up to raster. We can go to miscellaneous, and I'm going to merge. And all I'm going to do with this is I select the layers that are going to be merged, and just run it. All right, done. So I can actually get rid of these 2 files, just so I'm not having too much complication here. So that's our merged file. As you see, it's nice one grayscale file. But the next step we need to do is be able to extract the portion of this file we actually want, and that's where our coordinates came in from. So we take this file, we go to raster again, we do extraction, and we want to clip raster by extent. Okay. Now, right here, where it says clipping extent, X minimum, Y minimum, Y maximum, that's why I save this information like this over here. Makes it easier if I just tap it in and run. It won't take this one too long. It's not a big file. It's not to worry about. Cool. So, again, I'm going to remove that layer that I don't need anymore. So I'm dealing just with this section here. So this is what the height map I'm going to use. Now, it's not quite finished yet. There's a few things we need to do with it. First off, you notice over here that the minimum height in this area is -12 with the maximum of 250. Well, that's because this is based off of sea level. There's some areas in here that's actually below sea level. We actually need to be able to change everything so that the sea level matches what the game uses default. So Cities Skylines uses 40 meters as being the sea level. All we have to do is just add 40 to everything that's in the database. Again, simple thing. We click on the clip to extend. We go to raster. We want to go to raster calculator. Now, this program here can allow you to do a lot complicated things. In our case here, we don't have to do anything complicated. We're just going to choose that raster plus 40. Now, what we're telling you to do is for every single bit of information that's in there, add 40 meters to the height. That's all it's doing. We're going to output the layer to a file, and it's going to be do this one right here. Run it. Raster's complete. Now you see here is 40's been added to everything that's on there. So we'll go through and remove this layer. Now, at this point in time, I need to let you guys know that City Skylines only handles heights between 0 and 1024. If our information here ended up outside of that range, we would have to scale the map to fit in there. Because we are within the 0 to 1024 range here, we don't have to do any scaling at all. Brilliant. At this point in time, we can actually just begin to export it. Now, to export it, part of the QGIS program is a program that's called OSGeo4W Shell. It's a lot more powerful than than some of the tools that you can have actually in QGIS. For example, QGIS here does not have the ability to export as a 16-bit grayscale, which is what we want because City Skylines handles 16-bit grayscale. So we actually need to export it using the command line, which is where this command here comes in at. Okay, so what this command actually does for us is this. GDAL translates the actual command. -OT, that's the output type. Unsigned integer 16, that's what this means right here. The OF, it's the output file. We're outputting it as a PNG file. Now, this part here where it says scale, this is actually important. What we're doing is we're scaling the 0 to 1024 height, which is what the maximum that the meter maximum that the City Skylines has, and we're going to stretch it to the entire 16-bit channel, which is 0 to 65535. So we're stretching the range of 0 to 1024 into 0 to 65535. This will still keep everything proportional, and when it's imported to the game, all the heights will be correct. This is the source file here, and this here is the destination file. We just run it. And that's done. So, from here, we will be using a program that I like to use. It's called GIMP. Now, the program you need to use is the latest program. This particular version is, there we go, GIMP 2.10.8. The reason why you have to use this version or higher is earlier versions did not support 16-bit. So now we just need to open the file we just created. And we're going to go and do a bit of manipulation. So you see it's a 16-bit gamut integer up here. That's good. That's what we wanted. All we have to do now is actually resize it. So image, scale image. If you notice here, even though we use an 18 meter by 18 meter square, the pixel sizes weren't exactly that. And that's okay. The reason for that is because you're trying to take one projection that accommodates a curved surface and then project it onto a flat projection. So there is a bit of distortion there. This is normal. Click this little button to unlink the sizes, and we just want 1081 by 1081 because that is what the City Skylines uses for their sizes. Just scale it. Okay. Last thing I want to do is I want to go to filters, I want to blur, and I want to do a what's called a Gaussian blur. You can do a medium blur as well, but Gaussian blur tends to be just fine. And you really want to do this whenever you're having to resize a file, especially a texture file, because when it's resizing, it does try to fill in the blanks, and you will sometimes get a pixelation effect. By blurring it, it actually helps get rid of that pixelation and re-smooths out all your surfaces. Whoop. That's all we have to do. Now we're just going to export the file, and we're going to put it into our City Skylines folder. Now to do that, I'm just going to go to App Data, Local, Colossal Order, City Skylines, Add-ons, Map Editor, Height Maps, and we'll just name this as the Jimboomba New, so I'm just going to export that. Cool. Alright. So we're in City Skylines. We're just going to go to the editors. We're going to go to our map editor and make a new map. Temperate will be fine. So we are going to try to get through that second part of the Jimboomba map here. The last couple times we tried it, the quality was absolutely cruddy. I think I've manipulated the settings enough on the program to be able to actually try to get it to work. So we'll see how this goes. We had just finished creating the file. We had just finished exporting it or resizing it, exporting it into an image file. Now, when we had looked at it before, as much as you could see the river markings, they weren't very well defined, and that's because elevation data tends to stop at water levels. We can actually do something about that and create a nice little channel to help the water flow through, and that's what we're going to do next. So you may have noticed I'm in a different shirt, and that's because some of the information that was important to actually doing this real-world build wasn't clear because of some mistakes in the live stream. So I'm redoing that portion just for you guys. So we're just going to go ahead and load in our layer from our Jimboomba area. And as I said, what we're doing is we're actually going to make channels for our water and have it actually built into the actual height map, so you don't have to do too much editing on the actual in the actual mapping itself in the game. So let's go ahead and get that added in. So here's our map file that we're dealing with, our height map. Now, what I'm actually going to do is going back to this program that's called Quick OSM. Now, that's the OpenStreetMap plugin. It allows me to pull information from OpenStreetMaps. And in this particular point here, I'm actually wanting to pull the waterway information in the area of that. Okay, so run query. And what this will do is actually give me the information on both the rivers and actually any streams that are here as well, as you can see. So we have our major river here, which is the Logan River, and you got all these little feeding streams here. I'm just getting rid of the little dot ones because I don't need the dots messing up everything. But what I'm going to do is for these big main waterways, I'm going to change the style. I'm going to make that black as black can be. And these streams, I'm going to actually set those to their about 75% gray. Yeah, about right there, that's good. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I've got this here. I'm actually going to go back to my project, import, export map to image. And I'm going to set my resolutions to 1 in 500,000. And we're going to calculate from Jimboomba scaled layer. Now when I hit the save, it will save all that information about the rivers from that area. Now, just under City Skylines, you're looking for, you're looking for a place called Files. Now, what's here is all the files that the image overlay mod will use. So we're just going to go ahead and save that here because we can use that for later on to make sure that our rivers are all lining up properly. Yep, it already exists, so we're going to replace it. It exists because I did it before. All right, so now we're going to open up our GIMP. So we're going to go ahead and load in our converted file, and I always like to go back to like the file that I've exported from QGIS, not any file that I've manipulated before, because it allows me to make sure it's a nice clean file and not having something from previous edits that might cause problems. So once again, let's make sure we scale the layers to our 1081 by 1081. And now we're going to open as layers is the file that we ended up just saving before, that Jimboomba.png file. And we're going to go to layer, and we're going to actually scale the layer same way, 1081 to 1081, so everything lines up just right. And as you can see on the map, everything seems to be pretty lined up. Okay, so now for us to actually kind of darken this area that we want, we actually want to change the mode from normal to something else. Now, there's several options you could use. Darken only may work in some circumstances. Multiply might be something you want to use. Burn will give you, if you're not really worried too much about, if you just want everything that's in there, burn will give you a nice dark color on that. Multiply looks okay. Multiply looks okay. You still got this, everything's been darkened down. In this area here looks, it looks like what it should be. This layer is just slightly lighter than this. Remember, we made the creeks about 75% gray. But you don't want to use it as this, because this will just be absolutely dark black. You'll end up having these deep cliffs. So we're going to go and change the opacity of this, and we actually drop it down. Now, again, this is something you might have to experiment with a bit, but ideally, you don't want to put it so low that you lose your creeks. So you can see here, you can barely see the creeks. You probably, 25% is probably not. So we'll boot this at like, well, let's do it at 50. Let's see what happens when it's at 50. Okay, we'll put it at 50. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go and do what's called merge down. And what that does is basically it merges the top layer down to the bottom and turns what we're looking at into like a single image. And then I'm going to do my Gaussian blur. Now, you notice I didn't do my Gaussian blur before, and I'm doing it now because I want to make sure that I'm smoothing out the edges of the river without having done like a double Gaussian on the actual image itself. So we'll go ahead and filters, blur, Gaussian blur. Cool. Before we need to go to your file. We need to export this as, and we're just going to export this into our folder that we have the height map stored in, which, if you remember, that's in your user and your name and app data and all that fun stuff. So we're just going to do this as Jimboomba new, export, replace. So now that the image is exported, we can go ahead and import it back into our city skylines. And take a look at what you got here. You got these nice, well-defined rivers, and the deeper parts of the rivers are definitely deeper. You got these nice place for the rivers to go, and your streams that you got here. You got these beautiful indents in for your streams to flow down. So that when you add your water to those, you'll get a nice effect, and it'll be very realistic in the look. And it also means that it's a lot easier to see where they're at, and you can just add your water. And we'll just show this as an example. So we'll go ahead and start putting some water here. Now, when you're putting water down, actually, we're not doing water yet. Let's do something there. When you're building your cities and such like this, putting your resources is very important. And the idea is like, okay, where do you put the resources? Well, for one example, water, or I'm sorry, not your water, your fertile areas. If you've got a river running through your system, understand is like most fertile areas tend to be floodplains. And it's actually easy to figure out where your floodplains are. Just raise your sea level up till you're happy with it. So in this case here, I'm going to raise it to 75. So I've raised my sea level up to 75, and this is how this floods in. So to me, this is a major flood event. This is where the water will tend to flood. And this area here where there's water, that should be the areas that you put your resources into, your fertile land. And you can just go through, and I'd recommend choosing one of these ones that don't just plop big heavy pieces down, and just highlight around what you've got as rivers now. Just go through there and put it through. You can easen it up a little bit. As I said, do whatever you want to put there, but you basically you're given a trail to follow, so just follow it. Make sure you get all nice in here in the area where the river's actually at. And so that gives you a good idea of where your floodplains are. Gives you a good spot about where your fertile areas are, and you can then use things like Google Maps to figure out exactly where you should have your forest area. And for example, the area here, the entire area is forest mixed in even with this stuff. So you can just pop it in here. You can drop the this back down to your 40 sea level just so you can deal with everything. I mean, in this area here, I know the entire thing's forested, so I'm just gonna go through and just do a sweeping motion. Fill about half of my maximum capacity here with forest. And the reason why you want to do this now instead of wait till later to do it is putting in the actual water is the longest and most obnoxious part of the build. And you don't want to be dealing with having to put all this stuff here while you're still dealing with the water. So you can do it now. Get it out of the way. Don't fret too much about it. Yeah, and when it comes to the forest, it's probably a good idea to put the forest in before you raise the water level up, because as you can see here, areas like this, the forest won't really grow on that well. You can top that up later on. When it comes to your other resources, coal is usually good on putting right where you've got your major mountain ranges. So you just coat the top of it, and then maybe just do kind of like a really light sprinkle around it. That gives you a good area of coal that's reasonable. And for oil, well, oil's underground. It's up to you about where you put it, but you don't want to make it too much and not too simple. So you can just say, okay, got some oil over here where we tend to have a lot of the end of the thing here. Oops, oil. And yeah, now when it comes to the actual water, if you click on this water thing that adds the water to the systems, you notice that you have a water capacity down here. Now, when you change that, it actually changes the width or the radius of your water emitter. So you want your water capacity to be so it just barely fills out the banks of what you're looking for. You have it too big, and you're just going to have water flowing all over the place. So you pump it down there. Then you just worry about your height. You want your height so it's basically fills up where you want, or even better, maybe just a little bit of a little bit of a flood happening here. It's not going to go that far, but it forces the water to go through constantly without saying, "Oh, hey, I'm filled. Now let's start draining." So we'll speed this up, and as you can see, we have this really nice. This really nice channel that this water is going to want to flow through. And that's what we were after. We were after a nice river channel to deal with. And you can actually, and because you have this, you can actually come over here and actually put stuff with these feeder streams. For the feeder streams, I actually recommend you put your water in, put it the smallest amount, because you got to understand is feeder streams are just that. They just a little bit of water going through, and you can just plop ones near the end of it, and you can adjust the height for them as well to what you feel is appropriate. Again, you don't want to have too much water flowing down, especially if it's just a little stream, because a little bit of water up here might end up causing a lot of problems later on. And there, yeah, you look at how cleanly and that just slides down the mountain and follows the actual path you'd expect the river to take. Now, you won't get away from it. It doesn't matter how much water this is pumping out. Because of evaporation and such like that, you will reach a point where this water stream will meet its point of no return. It's just going to stop. It doesn't seem to flow anymore. Best way of dealing with that is you just add a little small water capacity stream right there, right where you want it, and just put it at the right height it is. Yes, you'll have a little bit of water flowing backwards, but eventually it will everything will get pushed down and everything will flow the right direction. And you basically put these where the water seems to be stalling at, and it will continue forcing it down. So, yeah, I spent all of yesterday, after my last part of the stream, doing all the water, and it's came out pretty well. So, just to show you, I've had to add several little mini emitters down the line just to push the water forward and to keep the river somewhat full, and that's okay. That might happen. But if you take a look now, got this beautiful river system with with realistic inflows of water. So what we're going to do now is, as we can look up here, we don't have any connections. No highway connections, no train connections, ships, planes. We're not going to have any ship connections because we don't have any ocean connections here. And the river is definitely not big enough to handle ships. At least I don't think so. So let's look at the ships just to... Yeah, so it's not deep enough to be able to put a shipping lane down. If you were dealing with one that had like a bigger river, like a Mississippi River level river, you might be able to actually put a shipping line down the river. But in this case here, we got no shipping lines. Well, that'll be fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my QGIS. And remember, as we had used the OSM, the OpenStreetMaps, to pull in the river information just to give a more distinct channel for our water to run through. Well, we're going to run the same program again, but this time we're going to pick up roads because we want a more realistic highway system where the highways come in, where the train systems come in, that sort of thing. So we're going to go over and just, first of all, we got to import our layer. As I said here, we're just going to go to our quick OSM, and again, we're going to use the key. We're actually going to now look at highway. Now, highway is basically a catch-all for any type of road system. As you can see, motorway, trunk, primary, secondary, tertiary, unclassified, residential, a bunch of little fun stuff here. You can even get an idea of where speed cameras are and stop signs, street lamps if you want to really build an accurate map. But we're going to do, again, layer extent and remove scale. But we're going to start off with with these big ones. These ones up here that tend to be the bigger ones. So we'll see if there's any motorways registered as being motorways. Because what we're going to want to do is actually load these in separate so we can color them differently. So, as I said, if you were trying to use this to build real maps, you could. Okay, so nothing that's labeled as motorway. But we should find something that's at the trunk, which is usually like primary roads. As you can see here, we got this nice road system that's in place here that we can see. You get rid of these little dot points because we don't actually need those. So there's our main trunk, the main trunk for our area. And this is actually the Mount Lindsay Highway. And in fact, the road that we're going to create will probably be this main trunk. I don't think I'll worry too much about the other ones, but I'm still going to show you the rest of them. So go back into our quick OSM, and we're going to do now our primary roads. Doing all this, it can actually get you like a good road mapping of the area to be using as an overlay, and including things like footway, which will put in place things that are just like your footpaths and things like that. And if you decide that you want to deal with this as a per layer, of course you can save each individual layer and put it in. Footway, pedestrian. So if you were actually to export this for as an overlay so you can make the road systems realistic to the area you're building, you can certainly do that. As I said, you can color each of these ones differently. You just go to right-click, Styles, and you can change the color of them to basically whatever you want to kind of get a better view of it so that when you're using it in the overlay, you know exactly what you're looking at. Or you can like unselect a bunch of them and only have like very specific ones, like we're going to do here. So the only ones that I actually want is this highway trunk. This is the only one I want. This is the one that we're going to have running through that's going to start the game. Also, let's go open up the OSM again. We're going to change this key here from highway and to railway. And query on all values. We're not really concerned about what they show here, so we're just going to do everything. Run query. All right. So now what we have here, we have our railway systems in that we can mark up, as well as our main highway systems. Now, just to let you know, like here in Jimboomba, this line that's right here actually doesn't run anywhere. This is the old Beaudesert line. But I'm still going to add it in the game, at least this main trunk of it, because it does run pretty much right through the center of where the city's going to be at. And again, I'll definitely add this little side trunk right here. So yeah, so all we have to do now, we're going to uncheck our overlay there. We're going to do export map to image. I'm going to set the scale again to our 1 to 50,000, was it? Calculate from the layer, calculate from Jimboomba scaled. Yep. And we're just going to save this. And I'm just going to rename this as Jimboomba Roads. Save successful. And I'm just going to exit out of this just to save up on some memory and things. No, don't need to bother with that. Ah, yes, we're pulling up our GIMP. So we're just going to open the file that we just created, which was in our data, Steam library, Steam apps, common, Skylines, files. And what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to select all this white area here and actually get rid of it. Bloop, goodbye. Okay. So that it's kind of like a transparent background. I don't need to see too much other than just the road. And we're going to do an image, scale image. Get to our nice 1081 by 1081. And we're going to export that. Override it. Poof. So that's done. I'm just going to close out of my nice little GIMP here. And we're actually going to put this overlay in place. So here we go. There's our road systems. This is what we'll be building to follow. As you can see here, the roads are in place. We got our freeway, our rail systems, our freeway systems. We have a air connections, train connections. We got everything in there. This map is ready to go. And as I said, I hope you enjoyed watching this and seeing how much work actually goes into building one of these maps. And if you wish to see a real world map done, feel free to leave a comment either in the suggestions on my main Twitch account, which is twitch.tv/Valerios, or in the comments below if you're viewing this on YouTube. Thank you again for joining me. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and see you next time.